Right, well, we may as well get cracking. We've got 22. That's a quorum, I think.
Yeah.
So welcome in a virtual fashion to Wakefield. And tonight's talk, I suspect, has probably got nothing to do with RISC OS. Haven't actually asked. Probably nothing to do with even with Raspberry Pis, but we don't care.
Yeah, well.
Does you good to have a change now and then. So just in case anybody hasn't heard of Mike, well, he goes back to the Beeb bodybuilding projects days. Although I seem to remember Mike saying that if you Google bodybuilding these days, you come up with things that are rather different. Right. So what I'm going to do now, Mike, is I'll switch to speaker view. I'm going to mute everybody, and then if you can mute yourself, and then off you go. Okay. I've enabled your screen sharing, so you should be able to do that as and when you want.
Lovely.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. So everybody should be muted now.
I'll unmute myself, and I will just uncloak myself. There you go. Right. So let's share the screen. Okay. I'm confused now because no folders appear on my share the screen. So I think I'm just going to have to go out of full screen view and try again. Okay, share the screen. Okay. We'll get there eventually. Okie doke. Well, to start off with, just to mention the C word, somebody, I saw a video of a anti-mask protester in Glasgow. Well, it was one of the first protests about this, and they were protesting about everything, including 5G. And this guy was saying, 5G? I mean, that's 600 gigahertz. I mean, my God, 600 gigahertz. So I made him a little meme. Forget 5G, it's only 600 gigahertz. This little beauty emits electromagnetic radiation at 60 million gigahertz. So they're the dangerous things there. Right, what I'm going to do is, first of all, give you a quick look round my my workshop and my house, and it'll explain why I'm doing this talk on there. But this is a Google view of the little village where I live in Lindale, and this is Back Road, and this little thing here is our house. Put that around that. That's where I live, and you can see it's sort of quite open on that side, and on that side it's an Audi garage. And if you were to drive past Lindale, this way up here goes into Grange over Sands. So that's basically where I am. So we get a lovely view of the Audi garage, and we get quite a nice view of these fields and the playing fields. Kids play on them and that sort of thing. So that's where I am in Grange. There's a picture from the bottom of the garden, and this window is what I am speaking to you from now. There it is, got some blinds on it now, but that's where I am. So I'm upstairs in a bungalow. Good trick if you like to go. Okay. In the snow from the park, again, that's our house, and that's where I am. And then this is what it's like in the snow. We sort of turn our back on the village. There's other houses, but they don't get a look in. We're sort of very aloof. Now, when we moved in, this is my bit. This is where I am now, before it had any stuff in it. So, if I do this, there we go. So that's where I'm sat. That's my desk. That's the window. That's a blind cupboard, which is now full of stuff. This is something that we inherited. The previous lady had used to paint up here for the light, so this was built in the corner, and it's still there. And that's a little door into a sort of a bit of the roof space which hasn't been paved, and then this is a door into a shower and toilet and wash basin. So that's how it was like before I stuck rubbish in it. That's the existing fixture, and that was it after I'd put these carpet tiles on, which are anti-static. I got these anti-static carpet tiles at very little because they're all seconds. I think you can see these slubs down the middle. I deliberately laid them so they all lined up as much as possible, so it looked like it was part of it. But it's they're all sort of random. And this is what we call the secret attic, which is, if we go back to that, is that wall there. Okay, so that wall goes onto an even smaller space, and then this pipe is the pipe to ventilate the shower. Okay. However, it stopped there. It just ventilated the shower into the loft space, which I thought was a bit daft, really. Anyway, so what we've got here is, in the corner there is my youngest lad, Graham, and he's got one of these drones, and he took a little flight above the house. He's fairly new to driving it, so he's a little bit cautious. So you can see the view from it. He did another drone flight through the through the garden, but he could have done that walking rather than actually flying through it. My computer fan's going at this. Lindale's a sort of smallish village. It's got about 150 houses in it, spread about, and none of them have numbers. They've all got names, which is really... We've got a big board in the middle of the village that tells you what the names are. And so he's flying across one of the gardens. It goes all the way around the garden. So Wendy's very happy with driving that. seconds. So you'll probably be able to see as it moves round the fact that we're above that garage, we're above that Audi garage, Audi, sorry. Oh, that's as far as that one goes. Right, so we've done the establishing shots. I'll just come out for a minute and I will show you around what it looks like now inside when I put all my junk in it. So coming off power, and it's a little bit of a walk round. So tries not to get any cropping. So that's the bookcase for when you're doing want to impress people on Zoom calls. Mind you, don't know how much a model train set's going to impress people. But I've just looked back down on where I've been sat. That's the table and the desk where the computers are, both the Raspberry Pi and the Mac sit there, and where the software gets written. So that's the point of that. You might have spotted a computer over there that looks familiar. Can you see it? That's the Acorn, the RISC PC. And then over on this part is where I do all the mechanical work, and probably this thing here is the most useful thing I've got, which is a pillar drill, miniature pillar drill. It's a Proxon is the make, and that gets used a hell of a lot of the time. And moving on to here, this is a bandsaw. And then for when I get the need for bigger holes down here, can we see it? Yeah, down here is a bigger pillar drill from Aldi, actually. Went in for a joint of meat and came out with a 40 quid pillar drill. You know how it goes. And then on this back wall, we've got is where I do construction. So that corner is done for painting. That is the new soldering iron I've had. Less than a couple of, about just less than a year now. I've had that. I was reluctant to get it because I've had the previous one 40 years, and I don't think I'll get 40 years work out of that one. Could be wrong, but I doubt it. And then this is where I make the electronics stuff. And then, just to show you, I wasn't fibbing. And this is the toilet and wash basin. Can't see what you're seeing, so let's open that. Right, so let's go. Let's go back. Back in and sit down. Right, so I'll stick the screen sharing back on, and take you to part 2 of this, which is the prep. Because what happened with the shower is that we didn't use it because it vented into the loft, and B, it wouldn't come on, and then C, it wouldn't go off, and one day it sort of just spurted water out, whether it was on or not, and we bunged it up, and it sat there for about a year, and my wife said, you know, I think that would look good with a table. We take the shower out, put a table and a plant on it. And I said, okay. I was rather thinking of having a laser cutter on it. So we decided to, well, and initially she said, no, you're not. And then about 6 months later, she said something about, well, are you gonna take this shower out so you can put this laser cutter in? I thought, oh, I'm in. So this was hence the name of the talk, Laser Quest. It is my quest for a laser cutter. And the first thing we had to do is, of course, is to take the shower out. So that was the shower that was in there. That was the view you got when you sat down on the loo. We had to bung it all up at the back and take the drainage out and move the electricity, because it's quite a hefty circuit for a shower. So it was separately fused. It was on a different circuit. Had an isolation switch by the door. So that was the first thing we took out. And then that's Graham, my youngest lad. We persuaded him to come up and give us a hand and take the shower out. The Zombie Apocalypse T-shirt he's got, we bought him for his trip to Vietnam, and he thought it was a little culturally insensitive to wear that in Vietnam, so he saved it for when he went to Australia. On the same trip, but you know, just about 3 or 4 months later. All that. So we took the shower out, and he'd never plastered before, which, due to the lack of resolution on the picture, you could probably not tell. We took the plumbing out at the base, and put these screwable floorboards down. And you can still see the bit of the carpet going on there. So that's what we did. And then this is the upper bit. There was a sort of block missing out that beam in the corner, and various blocks of wood and filler and that sort of thing were put in there. So that was in November 2018, as it shows. And then February, I decorated it by smoothing the plaster off, extending the carpet, and putting this silver wallpaper on, which is was from B&Q in a roll of wallpaper for £5 bin. So it's quite a good bargain. And then this is the other view. So that was the air extractor from before, and there was the sink and that sort of thing. Oops. So that was the position. That was where it was going to go. So if I go back and look at the actual quest. So this is what I wanted to get. I had certain sort of criteria that I thought I must meet. So these are the criteria here. We've got the room width is only 990 millimeters. That's just short of a meter. So it had to fit in that gap. Okay, that was the overriding thing, because I couldn't have put it anywhere else. I wanted a UK distributor because I didn't want the problem of shipping it from overseas, and with all the problems that it would cause if the things were damaged in transit. It needed to be Mac or Linux computer. A lot of the cheaper laser printers use really grotty, ancient Microsoft software, or you can upgrade the circuit board and run a Linux one to drive it. However, I wanted no web preparation. Some of the laser cutters, like there's one of the more common ones, means before you can actually turn your drawing into instructions for the laser printer, you've got to put it through a web application, so that you upload it to the web and download the code and connect it to your machine. I didn't want that at all, because basically what happens when the company goes out of business and the web disappears, the website disappears, and they either start charging for it, or you can't, or you've just got a heap of junk. So I wanted to avoid that, and preferably I wanted bigger than an A4 work area. So I wanted it to be a much larger area than just the A4, the small ones. And the third unwritten one was, I didn't want to spend more than £5,000 on it, which ruled out a lot of very nice laser cutters. But when you start looking for laser cutters, there are some sort of eye-wateringly expensive ones in the region of £10,000–12,000, or something like a Totec machine. Totec machines are very nice, but they're very expensive. They have very persistent salesmen that you won't stop spamming you once you've inquired. And also, you'll find that if they don't mention the price, it's too dear. Contact us for a quote. Yeah, and the rest. So I needed it to fit within a certain sort of budget. So I embarked upon a search of the laser cutters. Now the HPC Laser Limited, they're in Halifax, so they're nice and local. They import them in from China, and then they refurbish them, they sort of mend them, as it were, and put a different controller in, and run the thing from that. And they're very reasonably priced. But the big problem is it's a Windows only operating system. You've got to use CorelDRAW, and then you've got to use this crappy laser cut software that is Chinese and is really, really poor. Lots of bad experiences from that. So that was the sort of filled a lot of those criteria, but it really wasn't worth it. The Boxford ones, they're in they're actually next to one another in adjacent industrial parks in Halifax, well, halfway between Halifax and Huddersfield, and one suspects they fell out with one another, and one of them buggered off and decided to form their own. But they've got some really nice laser cutters, and not that expensive. They were within the budget, but none of them would fit. Bear in mind, not only it's got to live in that room, it's also got to get in that room by coming upstairs and going round through a very narrow door. That door's quite narrow. So the back Boxfords weren't any good. Then I came across one that was very interesting. It was called the Emblazer. In fact, it was the Emblazer 2, and it just got launched when I was searching. And this looked interesting. It was Australian, but it had a British distributor. He's got 2 British distributors now, and it was quite reasonably priced. It was £2,500, which was really good. And for a time, I thought I'd found my laser, but I investigated it more and more, and found out it was a solid state laser on the front. So that laser head is a 3-watt solid state laser. Now you can't compare solid state lasers and CO2 lasers with the same power, but what a solid state laser is blue, and CO2 laser is infrared. The point being is that Emblazer will not cut clear perspex, and because the light just bounces, goes straight through it really, if it's clear. You can cut blue opaque perspex and black opaque perspex and some of the other colours, but really you can't do it with perspex. It's very slow, and because of the power, it's got a little setting automatically. How many times do you want to go over the pattern before it comes out? So that it is quite slow, which is a shame, because it ticked nearly all those boxes, because it is bigger than A4. It fitted in about 770 mils, and it was quite reasonably priced. But the killer it was a solid state laser. Full spectrum, that's the one that I couldn't remember the name of. That's one of the things from America. There's hobby lasers in there, and you could download the manual, and it had things about what you do and how you set it up and that sort of thing. And this was one of the ones that needed your drawing uploaded to the web and getting it back. So that fell by the wayside. Now this was very nice, this Hobart's one. It was the right size. It was quite small. Again, about 700 mils from it, and it was quite well built. Look, quite a solid job. However, 24 by 12 work area there, and dimensions of the machine. Or it's one of those. Anyway, it would have fitted. However, there was a second-hand one for sale without the price, and it says comes with free spare laser tube worth £1,700. If you're paying that for the tube, it's going to be one in the 10k class. So sadly that went out of the wayside. And I downloaded all sorts of industrial cutting machines. I'm not after cutting metal, because these sort of things are cut metal, but they are another order of magnitude up. So you talk about £25,000 before you start cutting metal. And I just wanted to cut 3mm plywood and 3mm perspex. So, and these sort of, I mean, that's the size of one of them. It's the sort of thing you normally have in a factory and you move around with pallet trucks. Very nice, but not for the hobby market. This was a spreadsheet that I generated. Oh yeah, the other one that I've not got a picture is the Dremel. Dremel launched something in 2018, and well, they launched it first thing 2018, and I made inquiries, and they said yes, we're going to export it to Europe. I said when? Oh, we don't know. What price? Oh, we don't know. And I finally got a definitive answer in 2018 that it would probably be sometime in 2019. 2019 has come and gone. We're most way through 2020, it's still not made an appearance. So somebody said maybe it will never make an appearance here. It probably contravenes the WROCC compliances, and they can't be asked fixing them. See, the HPCs were quite nice, you know, price 2,000 plus VAT, or slightly bigger one, 2,000. The Boxford, 3,000. And the trick with this is the controller. The Rudilla, R-U-I-D-A, Ruda controller is good. The Leto controller is bad. And all the HPCs ripped out the controllers that came with the lasers where they got it from and put a Leto controller in. So that's not very good. Various others, very nice. That was the one at three grand from HTC. Laser Script was the name of the software there that it ran, and it really is horrible. Nova, Thunder, Oculus. That laser cutter at the time was no good for me, but this just started having a dealership with another desktop one, which might have done. It's a bit pricey, and it's 5k, but you can get it from a UK distributor called Cool Components. So that might be worth looking at again. You see, at the time it was 110. Sorry, 1,100 millimeters, and when your room is only 990, you can't squeeze it in. You know, it doesn't. It's not going to work. I looked at the Versa laser and the so that's the Holbert one, badged in a different colour. So that was the. Oh no, there's one more. That's the Boxford. Again, a Boxford badged under a AES brand. So they're all available, but not quite what I was looking for. This, however, is what I was looking for. It's the Lion's Forge craft laser. It is designed to be portable, hence the wheels, and it is unfortunately made in Singapore. So that didn't fulfill that criteria. But I came across it searching because it was a Kickstarter campaign that hadn't finished yet. They hadn't delivered any lasers in 2019. In about April, I picked up a post said, "Oh, we're nearly ready to test our first prototype and get it certified. If you're interested in buying one, you can still get it at the original Kickstarter price." So, oh, right. Did a lot of searching, a lot of head scratching, and they seemed to be nice people. The people at the bank, when I made the bank transfer to them, said, "How do you know it's genuine?" And I said, "I don't, but they seem like reasonable people." One of them used to work for claims to work for the RAF in Singapore, and it fits. And I said, I think I'll take a risk on that one. So that was the craft laser. There's a video link if you want to actually get a craft laser link there. I will. Now then, if I stop sharing, I can. Yep, to everyone, post the link. Type me a message here, so that you can look at it at your leisure. Bear in mind, it's a commercial link, and it was made before they actually made it. So some of the pictures of it are just a model of it. They look very different. So let's go back to the screen. So I know what you're saying. How much is it going to cost? Well, this is the spreadsheet. The laser cost was $3,800, but that was dollars, and what's more, that was Singapore dollars, not US dollars. So Singapore dollars were roughly about 55p a piece. So that gave us a price, a UK price of 2,204. The shipping was $570 Singapore dollars, £330 to ship it over. The import duty was £63. The VAT was £362, and the deferment fee, whatever the fuck that is, was £25. So the whole lot added up to just under 3k when it finally arrived. So that was the cost. I knew roughly these costs I was letting myself in for. I knew the shipping duty. I looked up the import duty, which is really neither here nor there. What kills you is the VAT, which is like 25%, and I guess there would be some sort of figure there, but that sort of came out as a sort of price that I was expecting. Okay, so that was my choice. So, hello. Did some sound just come out? I couldn't hear it. So, in about September, they sent me an email, said, "It's on your way. It's on the way. The laser's coming. So this is April. I'd ordered it, and then September they said, "Yeah, it's arriving. 3 days. It'll take 3 days to get there." A week later, I was still waiting. But anyway, this was the tracking of the progress. Started out on the 11th of September in Singapore, and then it went to various different areas in Singapore, and then on the 12th it was in Singapore, and then on the 13th it was delayed and then it finally got shipped to Cologne on the 13th. Shipped to Cologne. Wasn't where I was expecting. It then went from Cologne to Liège, which is a big Euro hub port, for TNT. Now, what made it complicated was TNT was in the process of being bought out by DLC. DTL? Yeah, the other one, anyway. They were being merged, and they hadn't a clue what was going on. So it spent a day in well, it spent a couple of days in Liège. So I went on the Google and had a look at where it was sitting, you know, and then it went to Knightsbridge on the 15th, and it was in Knightsbridge. It's arrived at the connection point. It's a shipment in transit. Then it arrived at the collection point again, and then it's a shipment in transit. And then on the 17th, the customs have approved the goods for import, and then the 17th it was in transit, and then on the 18th, the customs have approved the goods for import. I thought did that yesterday, but hey, and then it hung about in Knightsbridge. Knightsbridge, Kingsbury for another day, and then finally it ended up in Preston, and then it says Preston out for delivery. So on the 19th, I took charge of it. However, let me shut that down. It was a little bit damaged. That was the outside of the box. I picked up one corner of it, and it was an almighty great big clunk as I tilted it. Oh shit! What's going on with this? And I said to the delivery man, "He shouldn't do that. It looks like it's been through the wars, doesn't it?" And he's got some pictures there of made in Singapore proudly and bits of things hanging out. This is sort of really hadn't been careful. And the polystyrene that was in was all broken up. In fact, exactly what I'd feared, which is why I was after a UK distributor. So, you know, all the bits fell apart. I got in touch with them and they said, why do you think it was damaged like that? And I said, well, quite honestly, you don't pack something that's that heavy in a bit of moulded polystyrene. It's at least got to be that rubberized thing, and it's got to be floating in the box, and it wasn't. It was connected to the box. And so I took it in, and that, I think you can see where I'm pointing the corner, that was the thing that had dropped off. It had been glued to the base. Construction technique wasn't the best, being glued to the base, and it was, I thought, a water pump, because one end seemed to go into the laser, and the other tube was hanging about free, didn't connect anywhere. So I spent a couple of days looking where the heck this tube could connect to. And I'll just explain the tale about this. Finally, I came to the conclusion that it wasn't a water pump at all. It was an air pump. And the other end didn't go anywhere. And it just sat behind the radiator and pulled air in from the rest of the machine. And I presume what had happened is it had been stored upside down on the aeroplane, and it had vibrated out and it just broken the glue. The rest of the machine looked a little bit naive as well, and the rest of it was also a little bit damaged. For example, this is the honeycomb tray that you put the wood on to begin laser cutting, and you can see these things. They're very thin aluminium, and you can see they're all bashed. They're all bashed up. There's a close-up of one of them. So I spent quite a time pushing through the through these and trying to make them a little bit better. This is the electronics. Thinking about it, I suspect it made sense with the startup of how they've done it. What they've done is they've taken a load of pre-existing modules, presumably from Chinese market, and glued them all together. So we had some stepping motor drivers, a couple of stepping motors on it, and there's an Arduino Nano there monitoring the temperature. The previous one was, I looked up the Keynes base V1.4, and it's a controller for driving a 3D printer, and it messed about with the software a bit. It also shipped, this is looking down on it, you can probably see those there at the bottom. There's the stepping motor drivers. There's the stepping motors. They're on spindles, so they're not on belts, so they don't come disaligned and unaligned. But it was shipped empty. It was shipped empty because they said we've had some trouble with people of it leaking in transit. So we've shipped it empty. Just fill it up with distilled water. Now then, where do you get distilled water from? Now, hands up who said Halfords. No, what you get from Halfords is deionized water. And deionized water is one of the most corrosive things you can have for certain materials. Okay, so deionized water is very good for lasers with cooling systems that consist of stainless steel, but if there's anything else other than stainless steel and silicon in there, it'll corrode. And the last thing you want is it corroding. So search on the internet, where do you get stainless, where do you get distilled water from? Boots, they said. Boots sell them for dialysis machines. So I trottled into Boots and said, have you deionized water? And I asked the pharmacist this, and he said, any distilled water? And the pharmacist said, no, we're not, we don't sell that. And his colleague says, yes, we do. Over here. And he took me into the shop to the drinks cabinet, where he produced a bottle of distilled water with added electrolytes. So you got all the trouble of distilling this water, and then you put crap in it again. Oh dear, I didn't know. However, I do know the answer of where you get distilled water from. Quite reasonably priced. It was about £5 for a 5 litre bottle. And you never guess. And if it was alive, I'd make you guess, but you wouldn't guess. It is tattoo parlour suppliers. Because they use distilled water in tattooing for bringing out the colours and for making sure it's all clean. So I ordered some tattoo supply on Click and Collect. I had to go round to a local shop, which was about sort of 20 minutes drive away. Click and Collect, it was an electrical shop. So we've bought cookers from them and that sort of thing in the past, and they do this TNT Click and Collect. And when she picked it up and rattled it, she says, "Oh, I bet that's booze, isn't it?" I said, "Actually, it's distilled water." She said, "Oh, I don't know if I can trust you." And then she said, "Oh yes, you're telling the truth, because if it was booze, it would have said proof of ID needed for you could pick it up." I once bought a bottle of brandy in a Morrison's, and there's these big signs saying proof of ID needed, and this little it beeps. It was on the self checkout. It was only what I was getting, and this little lad came along and said, "Oh, I've got to verify your proof of ID." your age. And I said, well, I've got no proof of age, but I can tell you how to wire up a 3-pin plug. He took that as proof. So I filled it up with distilled water. There's a couple of views. This aluminium foil had to be broken to get at it, and I know it was there for electromagnetic radiation problems. I replaced it with my last bit of copper and peeled that back to get at some of it, and there it is. That was installed in my my room. It had a heat HPPT filter which fitted on the back, which meant, in theory, it didn't need any further ventilation. In actual fact, as soon as I started using it, it did, because the room filled up with smoke, and the air extractor from that was there from the shower, which, by the way, I'd had a workman extend it so that it went out to the eaves of the house when we had some building work done, and he'd extended that, but it still needed proper airflow. Basically, needed a proper airflow, which I have got round to doing, but I'll tell you more about that in a minute when we come to it. What you can see from there is there are no windows. You can't see what's going on inside it, but there's a camera inside. In fact, there are 2 cameras inside, this one there, and there was a socket for another camera so one gave you a view down the length of the laser, and the other gave you a view top down for about half of it. And all the gubbins kept getting in the way and stuff like that, but that's good enough. What I hadn't considered was that the power of the laser was controlled by a knob on the side, that side. And whilst I could get my hand in and adjust it, I had no idea where it was pointing to on the scale. So I got a little mirror, and I put the mirror down with one hand and looked at the scale and adjusted the knob with the other. Now, when you get a laser, there are 2 things that control what you cut with it, or how it cuts. One is the power of the laser, and I see this done by pulse width modulation to limit the actual power. And then the second one is the speed that it moves over. And on a lot of virtually any other laser I know, these things can be controlled by parameters in your drawing. On this one, it can't. It's only done, you can only do it from the controls. Knob on the side for the power, and a stepping knob on the front here, which tells you what percentage speed increase you get off the standard. And it can go down to 25 and it can go up to 500, but that controls the speed. So the combination of the power and the speed control how you cut. Of course, what you cut depends on the material, how much power you need on the material, the temperature of the day, the humidity of the day, and some bits of cardboard took more power combined to cut than bits of plywood, basically because they were, I think, very laden with moisture. They sucked the moisture in. Felt dry to the touch, but I think it was laden. So there. That is a gratuitous picture that shouldn't be in there. But somebody sent me, you see I haven't gone through these. Somebody sent me a request on Twitter saying, "Are you the Mike Cook that did the bodybuilding courses? Did you do the sound sampler? Because I made that one and it were good." That's the only one he made. So as I've heard that a lot. So I said, yep, that's me. And I'm in touch now with Kevin Edwards, who used to write a lot of the games in Microuse and went on to be a games developer. Came across him on Twitter, Twitter as well. Now then, that was my first project. I made this for the Ennerdale water mill. Now, if you've been up there, Ennerdale Valley from Ravenglass up to Boot, and when you get up to Boot, there is a water mill, and it was a commercial water mill, and they just refurbished it, and they wanted some badges, and this woman was moaning that she didn't have any badges, and I said, well, I've got a laser cutter coming, I can make you one. I made this promise in about August, probably maybe June, and it didn't arrive till September-ish, and by the time I got it running, we were into October, and they were in the process of closing. Anyway, I managed to make some there. I've got, yeah, I did some custom ones as well. So there's with a name on. So that was Ed, that was a partner, and she was Kate. And there's two ways you can cut an image into a laser cutter. One is the way I've got there by...
Sorry to interrupt, Mike. Bear in mind that you're not appearing full screen because you're screen sharing.
Fair enough. I will just stop that for a minute. Am I full screen now? Yeah, I'm not. Okay, is that better? So you can see Kate. There are two ways of doing a pattern on a laser, and one is by a raster. You put a raster image in, an ordinary pixel-based image, and it goes zoop, 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 and it takes forever. It really does take a long time. And the other way, which is the way I did these curves there, and the way I did the writing, is to have an ordinary vector cut, point-to-point cut, but not give it so much welly so it doesn't fall through. So you reduce the power, increase the speed, reduce the power, and that gives you the that gives you the definition on there. And it's also, you see, there's a bit of smoke around that one, so that was an early one. And the way you get around that is to put masking tape over it, and then the smoke goes on the masking tape, and you spend hours picking the masking tape off. But that's that's the way you do that. Other things I made. Let me see. Yeah, I'll just put this up again. Other things. Oh, that's a row of the ones I made, and where's it going? Clunk. There we go. Sometimes when you don't give it enough power, it goes into dots at the back, little dots like that. So some bits are cut out completely, and other bits is what I call dotting. I seem to maybe fondly think it might be the PWM on the laser cutter turning on and off, but it wasn't going that fast. It was mechanical. The PWM should have been faster, but maybe that's the problem. So I could now change the switch on the wall from the shower to the laser. And I posted that on Facebook. A friend of mine says, "You must be hard taking your showers in lasers." So, what I'm going to do now is to try and go through a demonstration about what you need to do to make something, and hopefully we're going to go into the laser room and cut it. Now, when I tried it this morning, this afternoon, just before I had to make the tea, it was a bit small, so I don't know how big this is going to be, but let me go through it. What you need to do, you need to have a drawing which is a vector drawing. So it needs to be consisting not of pixels but of lines on there. So I've got this, here's one I did earlier, and I'll just take you through the process. Here we go. Yes. So that's a sheet, that represents a sheet of A4 paper.
We're still looking at the laser switch, Mike.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Well, I am. I don't know about anybody else.
Yeah, okay, let's stop sharing and share again. Is that better?
Oh, yes.
Okie doke. So you can see what we've got there is a picture of your logo, which I downloaded from a newsletter that we got, and that's a raster image. I've then spent a bit of time on an image processing paint package, and I've turned it into a solid picture, because there was those little shadings on the acorns there, right buggers, because they're really faint and they won't disappear. Anyway, managed to touch that up and put it alongside the Riscos label there. And so that's the vectored version, and that's the unvectored version. Now, as I say, this is a bit small, and what happens is that the writing, the weight field gets a little bit running into one another because of the width of the laser beam. So I'm going to select that, and I'm going to group it, and I'm going to remove that for the time being. So I've grouped that, and I will now scale that in millimeters. So it's currently 60, and I want to make this a bit bigger, so 60, 80, 80. So now you can see that it's fallen off the edges. Now how big is that? That is 75, 80 by that. Sorry, plagued by little insects. Because this is engraved and this is not engraved, what I'm going to have to do is to take out the engraving circle first of all, which is a bit of a disaster because I grouped everything together. So let's ungroup it. Ungroup what it says. Ungroup that. And then take that out. Okay. And now I've got to turn this into G code because it works off G code. There's a little SD card in the laser cutter, and it goes off the G code. So I've got to turn this into G code by putting an extension here, which said it says generate the G code, and I'll just check it's going to where we're going, and I'm going to call it engraver.gcode, and I'm going to apply it. So click, and it's working, and it's worked. Now that might have looked like a bit of a mess on there, but that's exactly what it looks like, because it's drawn the G code with lots of arrows and stuff going there. So I'll close that down, and I'll undo. It's telling me where the two reference points are: 0 on the corner, 100 over that way. I'll just undo that. So I've got that there. I will just undo the taking away of the outer circle, because I want a separate thing for that. So I need to take away the inside, and then I need to turn that into G code, and that's going to be the second file that's going to cut out the circle. So the first one will engrave it, the second one will cut it out. So the extension generate G code, and I'm going to call this one cut.g code, and let's apply that. See what happens. And there we go. So that's put that into a G code file, and for reasons which I won't go into, it's actually drawing that circle twice. Once clockwise and the other times anti-clockwise, which, again, for reasons I'll go into a bit later, is not quite what we like. Well, not quite what we'll normally do, but this will do fine for this exercise. So now I'm going to close that down, and it says save the changes, and I'm going no, because I've buggered up the picture and I've made different changes. So close without saving. So the screen sharing stopped and the window is closed. So why is that then? Let's share the screen again. Now, you don't just say, well, hang on, I've generated the G code, let's go and cut it. It's probably best to do a test of the G code. So I've got various applications that do tests, and one of them is called Camtronics, and I'll just open up the G code. Okay, and there I can see, change the perspective on it, shift it along, do that view on it, there we go, and that's what it's allegedly going to cut. I can do this backwards. Okay, so that looks looking like it's going to do something. It might still be a bit small at that value, but let's see what happens. So that's the one of them, and the other one, don't save that. Let's do the cut, open, okay, and that's the much simpler circle. You'll see what happens is that it does it twice, once round one way and then changes round and comes back the other way. So we've got a fighting chance that it's a decent picture. So we'll go along and we'll take that out of the way. Now, just excuse me a moment, I will go and get an SD card. SD card, which should go in the side of my ancient computer. And it's called No Name. So I'm going to take the cut codes, there's 2 codes, and add them to No Name and say, let's replace them. So that's transferred those 2 G-code things into No Name. So we can just eject that and it disappears. Take it out. And then we've got it. So it's on there. So far so good. So let's now try and do a little bit of jiggery pokery and introduce you to I've gone, haven't I? You still hear me?
Yes, Mike, you're just still screen sharing, that's all.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep.
So, but I can't see myself because I've plugged another camera in. So let me just go to Zoom. Zoom. Start the video. Yeah, I'm back. I've got a little camera on a string, which might actually make this part a little bit easier to follow. So let's gather up everything.
Yeah, you'll need to stop screen sharing, I reckon.
No, I think I can carry on doing it.
Okay.
Are you seeing it?
Well, yeah, I can see your moving video, but obviously you're tiny.
I'm tiny.
Well, yeah, you're not occupying the whole screen because the screen sharing is.
Ah, you'd have to put that back on, won't you? So let's. So we want that full screen. Stop sharing.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
Yep,
so
yep. A lopsided view of a laser.
Yeah, I don't need to screen share for this bit. So let's take you around the laser. You can see I've got a hole in the wall. That was part of my new installation. And if we move back off, I've got a silver exhaust. A new silver exhaust screen there. And as I mentioned, in the run through, it's is that better? That's not bad. So here's a bit of poplar, 3mm poplar, and this is what I'm going to cut on this end of. So I'll open up the tray. I'll move this over here. And we're going to use some high-tech masking tape, and I'm going to put a bit of masking tape over the area where I'm going to do the cutting, so hopefully the idea, by the way, I haven't said, is it's a drinks mat. So there we go. Let's see if it works. So that's loaded in, and now slide that into the laser, and then go and switch it on. There we go. So that's turned the power on. Now this is very loud, so I'm going to wear some ear defenders, but when we tried this last night, it wasn't too bad. I've already checked. Don't know if you can see. You see that? No, you might not be able to see that. So let's turn it on. So we can see we've got from the side 3 LEDs. Pure shut, laser ready, laser on. So the laser's not on. Picture, you see here, okay, so this side is looking down the length of the laser, and when it starts, you'll be able to see the red flash like the Star Wars laser, the red one, and that's the top down view. So first of all I need to set the speed, and it's the engraving one, so I'm going to set this at reasonably high speed. Now I'll put the SD card in, engraving code and set it going. You can see the laser there flashing in the red. See the smoke being generated over away there. See the writing built up destroying the egg ball now. Okay, so that's finished the engraving part. I'm going to turn the power up now to 2/3 power. I'm going to change the speed. Change the speed down to about 130. Then fine. Go. Just waiting a minute for the fuse to die down for Now we've got the laser cut drinks mat. A Wakefield Briscoe S. Oh yes, look, it's come out as well. Excellent. And And there we go. We'll go back and check. Do you ever see that Mitchell and Webb where he was doing the Adventures of Caesar Salad? He's going Dick Barton music. Okie doke. So there we've got the drinks mat. Unwrap it. I'll take those ear defenders off. It really is quite unpleasant wearing them. So there we go. There's the Riscos, Wakefield Riscos Computer Club beer mat.
What sort of discount can you do for 50 off?
Yeah, I've done them for my lad Alec. His girlfriend sings, and I did some for her for a merch stand, and she sold them for about £3.50 a piece, and I reckon they cost about 50p to make, maybe a little bit less. This is in poplar, and poplar's a lot easier to make. So what have I made with it? Well, all sorts really. Let's scattering them across the universe. There we go. Here are some, where are we? Things I made earlier. Basically some Christmas decorations for hanging up on Christmas trees. Okay, so what I did with those is I cut out the basic shape and then cut out the shapes in perspex, each one a different colour. Yeah, you can see against the light, and therefore got different coloured combinations on the perspex. There's another one, and then I did the some of them with Christmas tree cut out again. Cut out the hole and cut out the perspex and push the two in together, and there's a gold one like that, and a silver one like that, and a gold opaque white one, and that sort of thing. I've been able to do things like work out how to actually put a slider on a piece of wood, and that's just a test piece because that's going to be a top of an instrument. I did this. Now then, if we look over here, forget about that for the moment. What I've got is this. This is a flying man. Well, at the moment it's a crashed man, but there you see there's a figurine of a man. And it's attached by some strings to a bass. Okay, so if we then let go of it, he's flying. And crashing if you push it too far over. So there you go. He sort of almost defies logic when you see a picture of him. You go, how the hell can that happen? When you're actually picking it up and feeling it, you can feel the forces, because this one is pulling, the whole thing's pulling down, but this one, these tethers are forcing the pulling down to come in this direction, and that is stopping it going in that direction and collapsing. So it beautifully balances out, and I quite like him. And he stays on my windowsill occasionally, but then if it gets too crowded up there, which it normally would do if I wasn't giving a talk, then it would it would crash. It crashes each time the blinds go in and out. But that's one of those things that you can do. What else have I done? When I'm doing things to start off with, let's just put him back. Yeah, he's back up there now, flying. One nice thing to play about with is tessellating shapes. And I've got the old Escher lizard here, and this is just a trial run in cardboard, but it's actually a cereal packet. Oh, that one doesn't go there. See all that? So there we are. Escher-like tessellating reptiles. Great fun. Also made a sequence of these. And these I'll just show you the simple one to begin with. And this is a shape. If we bring this shape out in the open, then I'll have to remember, I should have practiced this, just simply by rotating the shape. Nah, rubbish. It's supposed to go into a square when you get it right, but I haven't had those out for about a year. One of the things, see if I can change this camera. Switch cameras. Is that seamless? Is it? Yeah? Okay. That's a camera. Tripod. One of the things you could do is make glorious boxes for electronics things. Here's a box I made. I think it's a really nice looking box, and it's a touch sensitive controller. It's a hexagonal box, and I like hexagons, and there are 6 brass touch things around the outside, and there's 2 more in the middle, 2 strips in the middle, and that's quite a nice box. Now, rather than set this up, I'm going to try and share the screen again, and this time to run a video. Now then, you'll have to tell me if the video, if the sound starts coming up. Okay. I'll come back to it again. Right, yeah, well, as you gathered, that was Alec playing it. That was his first go on it. He had 5 minutes playing with it, and he says, right, I'm ready to shoot something. And he shot it. So, you know, it's not 100% perfect, but for the amount of time, to say he'd never seen it before, and to say it was sort of right off the peg, then I think that was very good. I was quite impressed with the lad on there. But it's quite a nice looking instrument, that, you know, and it's played on the Raspberry Pi. Yeah, that was. I think it was in February, so January, somewhere around about February this year. I did it last Christmas, just before we went into the dreaded "you can't go out anymore" thing. Right now, there's this. Now then, you know what's coming, don't you? You do. This is a piece of electronics. It was designed and coloured to look like one of them triangles in Quality Street. And it's a piece of glitch music, and it's a box that generates glitch music, which is the sort of music that they did in the 80s demo scenes. But this is a standalone thing. There's an Arduino in it. There's a standalone thing. And there are 15 different algorithms, 16 different algorithms, and you can change the algorithm, and it generates the samples and the structure within the samples just from this algorithm, just from the one formula that that makes the whole thing. So that's it. And I'm going to put it on, and it can generate sequences from as short as 2 or 3 5, 10, 15 second sequences, and then it repeats. Or it can do things that go on for literally days. And one of the sequences I just had running, and it had been running for about 5 minutes, and all of a sudden another instrument appeared. It seemed to be a cowbell appeared into it. Where the hell did that come from? We've been 5 minutes running without anything. It's called a glitch storm. You've got 3 buttons that alter parameters in the algorithm, and you've got a volume control on the side, and you've got step up and step down through the algorithm, and the LEDs show you which algorithm it is. Battery operated, self-contained. Okay, you asked for it. You didn't ask for it, but you're going to get it. Right. it's quite a thing, and you can literally there's a headphone socket on the side, so you don't have to bother everybody else, and you can make all sorts of noises with that. I did a Raspberry Pi version of this because I thought you can't do it with a Raspberry Pi, and then I thought we'll try, and I came up with this. And this is a pentagonal box. So I was in the shape box phase. This is a pentagonal box, and there are the 3 controls you had before, plus a control to alter the sample rate, and a control to alter the algorithm. So there's a separate one for the algorithm. It's not... these are rotary encoders, so they're continuously rotatable on there. I was doing a series of things about rotary encoders, and that's on the internet. I have a video here of it, if you want. But if you want to play with those sort of things, if I post this link to it, there's an on-screen version. Chat. There's an on-screen version which I'll put on the chat. Sorry, a web-based version, and you can put your own formulas in and let it fly through there. That's rather good fun. Now, yes. Rushing through things I've made. I made this for the Drake Music people. Now what we did was we made a little board, this thing in green with the copper, the gold keyboards, and we made it in gold so that it was a sort of group project. They got kits for all the kids, and we were halfway through making them, and we had trouble with our workshop, and then COVID hit, and we haven't quite finished the project. But one lad with cerebral palsy took it home, and the person that I didn't make this board. Chris Ball made this board, another member of it, and he lent it to one of the lads, and he put some copper, big copper pads on a piece of cardboard and sent it to Sam. And Sam said, "Yeah, I like that. I liked it bigger, so I could actually do it." So I've built a version permanently of it being big with copper, with brass contacts on it, and so they can get hold of. If I push this down, they can get hold of their hand, and they can control the hand to put it on the appropriate value. And there are some multicoloured LEDs that light up when certain sequences happen. And it's got a rocking bass because there's a tilt sensor in that. And tilt sensor applies some vibrato. And so I've put it on the rocking bass so that they can actually rock it backwards and forwards. You see the profile on that. But as we've all been in lockdown since that, no one's had a chance to try it yet. So that's another one that's quite handy. And let's see if this works. So another thing I've made with the laser, and there we go. This is a Hawaiian guitar, or that's the theory anyway. I've got this bar that runs along there, which at this end I've got a time of flight sensor. So So the time of flight sensor goes and hits this target, gets it back and says how far it is. It then uses that to set what chord it's playing, and then the rods on this side represent the strings of that chord. Now, it's very early days with the software, but as you'll notice, there are no wires attached to it. So what I'm going to try and do is to put this through to GarageBand. So if I just share the screen for a moment. And takes the time to load up. There we go. Turn a Bluetooth on. And find the on switch, turn this one on. Connect to it. Is that coming through? Anybody?
Yes, indeed. Yes,
Yep.
yes.
Thank you. Let me I'm trying to get it to stop. and my favourite. Little display on the side that shows how much. Turn it this way up. I don't know whether you can see, there's a little display there and there's the numbers changed. Probably can't. There you go. Actually turn it off.
Part of that reminded me of Cattlecaster.
Yes, it was exactly the same, thing. The idea being is that these are the strings, so because it was all in the key of a pentatonic A, which apparently is what they tune steel guitars in. But as I can't play one, when you make an electronic version, you still can't play one. But some of those ethereal pad-like noises sound quite good. And I'm going to put different modes in the software where they do different keys, different chords as you slide it up and down, not just the same key, but barred, which is what the steel guitar is. It's the same bass note, but it's still barred. So that goes up and down like that. Now I would have only been able to make that by the use of a laser cutter. I couldn't have done it any other way, because all these bits that stand up and stick in the gubbins is it's got to be aligned properly, and these buttons on the side, they're real sod to actually fit in, because these screws have to be in exactly the right place and the holes have to be correct, and the holes are on a 0.05 of an inch grid, the centres of these holes, and then the others on a 0.1 inch grid for the Vero boards to go in underneath. So again, that took a bit of sorting out. Now I cut out just that button row in cardboard and made sure everything fitted before I got on. So those are some of the things that I've been playing with my new laser cutter. And we'll just add a bit of a postscript to this. The last thing I built was this tapping LED project that you saw in the corner. Now I'll just go into my screen a little bit and share that. Okie doke. And you want to see what's inside that, incidentally, that's the gubbins inside, and that's the button display and the time of flight sensor, the strings with the base plate. That's an SPI I2C interface, and then that's the Bluetooth micro there. That's it with the battery in it, all glued on. So it's got a rechargeable battery in there. Okay. I'll play this video because it shows the construction of what really killed my laser cutter. And I was cutting, it's an LED array with a touch screen on top of it, and with a baffle or waffle board, and it's cutting that waffle board in the heat wave, the summer, that I took the temperature too high and took all the power out of the laser, and I think I need a new tube fitting. So anyway, that's it's part one. It shows you how okay, so that's the construction of it without any of the tapping, and then I did some applications that allow you to tap and make pictures and also sequences, and the one at the end is a sequence that I've made on by tapping LEDs out and getting the sequence, but every time a frame is played, it applies the rules of Conway's Game of Life to the to the sequence, and you get a totally different sequence each frame, and it develops on there. So this is, I think, the last thing I'll show you tonight. It's just 3 minutes. Right. I think that wraps it up. And if you have been, thanks for listening. Thank you.
Right. Can you hear me, Mother?
Hi.
All right. Well, thanks for that, Mike. You might possibly be the only person in the world who has a laser cutter in his toilet.
Yeah.
That is fairly unusual.
Yeah.
Okay. If anyone has any questions, I hope
Chris Quinn has.
Chris Quinn has he? Okay. If you can unmute yourself, Chris, because I can't see where you are at the moment. Where are you?
Hey.
Yes, is that,
Yeah.
Can
Fire
you hear
away.
me now, Mike?
Yeah.
All right. A couple of things. When you first showed us those badges, those first badges you made, you were talking about a mill on the a flour mill on the Ravenglass Nestar Railway. I think that's Muncaster Mill, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's it. That's the one.
Yeah. Well, what amazes me about that is I went there, probably 20 years ago now, and there was a guy running it at the time who was your absolute double. Yeah, it was like when I first saw him, I was convinced it was you. So, but he retired from it, and the mill was sold on, and then it looks as though it's gone back to being a flour mill again now, is it?
Well, no, it's still an exhibit basically, but they've got some national heritage money, and so they run it as a not so much as a commercial venture, but as a historical, almost historical reenactment, and it's they've improved, some of the signage, some of the things that go on. The activities, and they've got lots of volunteers now, and a network of volunteers that come round and do it. But when I spoke to Katie, she was saying, well, we haven't got any badges. And I said, well, I think I could supply you with some. And now she didn't know me from Adam, really. So we came up with this design, and she liked the aesthetic of it. It wasn't crisp and completely buttoned down. There was some sort of, it looked like a volunteer thing. I was going to make it on half on logs, cross sections of logs, but I didn't get around to doing that. But she was quite pleased in that.
In terms of the materials that you can use with the cutter, Mike, you talked about using perspex, and I think, was it plywood you were using that?
Yeah, I tend to use plywood, either birch plywood or poplar, or MDF. Now you can get some special MDF that you can laser cut. Apparently, if you get the old B&Q MDF, it produces sort of very poisonous gases. Not only do you no good, but it does the laser cutter no good as well. It corrodes things in there. So yeah, they've done that. I forgot to show you. Forgot to show you this one. One of the things you can do with laser cutters, you can see that it's the little spirals cut out of wood.
Oh yeah.
And these you can press, and if you look through the side, you can see them pressing buttons on the underside. So it's a sort of they call them living hinges, but it works in a lot of things. And this is a prototype, or started off as a prototype for a flute with. Some of you might recognise that.
Yes.
It's an inhaler.
Yes, recognise those.
Good grief.
So the idea was you make this flute with the inhaler, and I showed this to some researchers, and they were amazed. They said, that is a piece of equipment that you know instantly what to do with.
Yeah.
As if, you know, you're faced with the tuber and you think, you know, which end do I blow in, the big end or the small end? But they were quite pleased with that. So, yeah.
Can you cut thermoset plastics as well as thermoplastic materials, Mike?
Oh, yes, forgot to show this.
Oh, very good. Yes, yes, yes.
And this is special thermoplastic for, well, they use it commercially for making face masks.
Yeah.
And this front, I've got some proper material, but this is just some laminate, a piece of laminate gone through the laminator with nothing in it, and that gives me. First time my wife used this, she nipped out for some ice cream. We were driving through, and it was dripping, and she went to lick the ice cream off, and when
Yeah.
a splodge of ice cream on it. So yeah, that's another thing I was doing over the.
I've found to my cost, Mike, that if I put the plastic material through my laminator without anything in it, it wraps round and round the rollers.
Oh,
And it's a horrible job to get it out. You only do it once.
The ones. Yeah, it doesn't do that on my laminator, but that's because it was probably a very cheap laminator.
Oh, that's it. Mine's a posh Rexel one or something. Anyone else got any questions? Don't be shy.
Quite fascinating.
Oh, somebody's
Yeah.
waving there.
Yes.
Peter, are you waving to unmute yourself? Or I can unmute you. There you go.
There we are. I think that's me.
Yep.
Yeah, very interested in musical stuff as per ever, Mike. I particularly like the triangle generator thing and the Hawaiian guitar. I don't know if you're aware, Synthfest is on this weekend, and I'm sure if you posted anything to the organisers, they'd probably be taking you up. And I've heard some stuff at some modular shows before now, which your random generator could replace a DJ, I think. All good stuff, yeah. So what was the main reason for buying the cutter? Was it the accuracy, where you could do these inserts like you were doing on the stained glass things?
It was mainly that. My wife said, you know, what are you going to do with it? And I said, well, make boxes. And that sounds a little bit pathetic, making a box. But you can see the boxes are various sizes. I've been trying to avoid having something you can't make for a Raspberry Pi article. But with that tapping LED one, there's no way you can cut that out.
No.
Normally, what I've advised people to do, if it's just an ordinary box, I've got a box here. Never even got round to showing you this box. But I've got this box here.
All right.
And it's a MIDI processor, and basically, what you could make this by is by printing out the plans, printing out the SGB vector plans, gluing it on plywood, and taking it through a fret saw.
Right.
So it's not impossible to do, but of course you don't get the accuracy.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
It's meant.
And of course, it's different to 3D printing as well, isn't it? Because it's variable materials. Yeah.
It controls this. I don't know if you've seen this.
WX7 or 11. Yeah.
It's a sort of flute, a saxophone type emulator.
Yeah.
But like a true saxophone or clarinet, it's a transposing instrument, and so it doesn't play the right things. But when you bung it through this, it does play the right things.
Redoes that for you, right?
And it also turns the breath control into continuous volume.
Right.
The way it comes out it's just the breath control controls the volume as you play the note, but you can't hold the note and then blow harder or quieter and get the breath going.
Right.
So that's a very sort of boring square box. It's in the way, it's in a style now that I like to make boxes, which is the top and bottom are separated by pillars.
Yeah.
And then the sides just clip in to the other way around the side, and it makes quite a simple box to make, and even sort of lots of buttons on here.
Yeah, yeah.
With those that are difficult to use, buttons like that, because these are 12mm holes, and even on the big pillar drill, you in that place. So that's
yeah. I was thinking, well, as you were showing us that one, you know, do a round hole, do a square hole, do a triangular one, whatever you want, really. If you've got the thing that fits in, just cut it with an accuracy spacing around it, and you're off, aren't you? Yeah.
I have actually got some triangular buttons.
Really?
of anything without without a laser cutter.
No. Yeah.
Okay, anybody else got any questions?
Thank you very much.
I bet Mike must be the sort of guy who watches the Repair Shop on BBC One. I missed it tonight because of you. I have to watch the video.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sometimes their electrical knowledge is a little bit.
Yeah.
Radio, mending the radio with ones.
Yes.
That's all right.
You don't do it like that.
You've got to give them credit, though. I mean,
yeah. I mean, some of the mechanical stuff is phenomenal.
Yeah.
and the pentatonic scale in A is A, B, C sharp, E, F sharp. If anybody cares.
Yeah. Right,
Mike,
yes.
Just how accurate is the laser cutter? I mean, what's the smallest line that you could cut with it?
Right. Well, that's a little bone of contention with me, because when I first got it, I did it very early, and these are what 1/4 millimeter thick lines.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, but now it's down to about 1 millimeter wide. It's an auto-focusing laser. So whether that's something to do with the lasers or the alignment or the mirrors or something like that, I stripped the mirrors down the other day and cleaned them, and they were they needed cleaning, but it didn't help with the power or with the laser cut. So that's why it might have been, I don't know what it was, but it slowly got wider as the laser cuts. And the other thing is it doesn't cut a straight edge. It basically cuts a V-shaped groove in it.
Yeah.
Right.
So that they're not vertically aligned. If you want them vertically aligned, you've got to sand them so that they'll butt into one another. But that's the problem. I mean, there's a thing called kerf. I don't know if you've heard of kerf. It's somewhere. I've got a kerf gauge here that I cut from my laser printer in card, and what this is you cut a notch out, and by the time of each notch you engrave how big you made that notch on your drawing.
Right.
Yeah.
So that if you want something to fit exactly, you can sort of test the tightness of fit, and so you know how much to make the slot to match the and that does change. I mean, some people industrially cut a kerf slot like this every day before they start,
Right.
with whatever material they're doing, or maybe not as elaborate as that, but that allows you to get really tight tolerances and to make the bits come together in a very fast way, in a very tight way. In a way, that's what happens here. In fact, they're a bit too tight, and I actually had to end up filing them around, because this is what is this?
Key interlock.
It's birch plywood, but with a maple laminate on the top. So I didn't paint this. I just covered it in Danish oil, and I gave it a few coats of that. And it gives a nice, a nice appearance on there. Whereas the Flying Man was just painted with wood staining varnish. So there's nothing special about that. No, it is plywood. So that that's it can get very fine, and you can do very intricate things. But of course, the longer you do them, the more smoke generates and stuff like that. But you can get lasers with a lot finer cutting than even a quarter, even 0.4 of a millimetre. I've seen some in shops. I go around looking at these laser cut things that build up into a little garden or whatever. They sell for the tourists for a couple of quid. And some of those lines are really, really fine. And it's down to the price of the laser, really. The more money you pay, the finer you can get. And a manual focus, you can always focus finer because you can adjust it. But there's nothing like the convenience of an automatic focuser. You saw that. I just put the material in, and it just lowered the. It had an ultrasonic sensor on it, so it just lowered the thing to a predetermined place. There are supposed to be movements where you can tweak the Z-axis and the X and the Y, so that you can do it in one place and shift it along, and do it in another place and shift it along. And when I said I can't seem to work out how this works, they said, no, it doesn't. They might actually be doing an upgrade to the software, but I'm not holding my breath on that one.
What's the sort of horizontal stepping increment, the finest increment?
I don't know, quite honestly.
Presumably it's a lot less than 1/4 of a millimetre.
Yeah, yeah. That's why you can get these rasters. I think you can go 300 dpi on the rasters, turning them on and off. But I don't know about the engraving.
Other question for you is you put 2 files onto an SD card. One was to engrave the club logo, and the other one was to cut it out into a coaster.
Yeah.
What I couldn't make out was, okay, you must have stuffed that SD card into your cutter, but you must have been able to select each of the files in turn.
Yeah.
That I couldn't really make out.
On the front of that cutter, where you see where I was twiddling that knob to set the speed.
Yeah.
If I pressed you press the middle of the knob and navigate through the menu system, and one of the things says print a file, and you navigate down to that, press the button, and then you get a list of all the files that are on the SD card. I tend to only keep the files on the SD card of the project that I'm doing at the time. And I use standardized names like cut.gcode and engrave.gcode.
Yeah. I don't think don't recall seeing the screen.
No, I'd be surprised if you could. It's very difficult to look
Very
at.
diddy, is it?
Yeah, it's sort of little LCD display about that size.
Okay.
On the front.
I figured there must be something.
But it is there.
Yeah.
Mike, sorry to butt in. There's no interface at all with your computer then? It's completely separate?
Yeah, totally standalone, which is quite rare in lasers, and I quite like that as a concept to do. Other lasers have Wi-Fi connections, and they can grab files off a server, so they don't have to be connected to the computer. But there's not like putting a SD card in.
Oh, I'm absolutely amazed that you haven't considered connecting it directly.
Well, you should say that there's a USB connector on the side, and it does print out the G-code information as it goes past. So that 3D printer actually, the 3D printer controller actually spews out the G-code, presumably for test or something like that. So I've seen that. I haven't tried actually bunging G-codes into it because basically I haven't had the time. And I think they've reprogrammed it to make these X and Y offsets work, and I don't think they've done it right. And I don't think they're going to release here's this, plug this into your Lines Forge cutter and download this code. I don't think they're going to risk that. They seem to be rather restricted to Singapore because they're forever posting videos of them going round and delivering them by hand to various people. And they take them on, because of the wheels on it, they can take them on aeroplane luggage. They're taking on normal cargo luggage, bunged it through, just wrapped it in cellophane, round and round and round, and then pulled it off the carousel at the end. And the mirrors don't need a lining at all, which if you tried that with any other laser, it would probably, you'd have to sort of realign the mirrors once you got it to the other end. But this really is portable, which is quite handy because it means you can quite happily lift it up by one handle and put it down without knowing, that you're not doing any harm with it.
Can't be too bad considering the damage that it went through just to get there.
Yes, it was a bit heartbreaking
I can imagine.
like that. And it is just what I feared would happen. And, but that, you see, I think these guys, 3 of them, they did this Kickstarter project, and in a way, they learned how to do manufacturing on the job, and it's a whole different skill set to being able to make stuff, to being able to make stuff that you can make a couple of hundred of. I mean, if you fancy buying one, they're about to go up to $5,000, but they're still selling them currently at $4,500. But they hope to get the selling price up to 5,000. Those are Singapore dollars.
You haven't thought to send them a video showing one of their lasers cutters in a toilet in England?
You can't get the toilet in at the same photograph as you can get the laser.
You have to pan. No, you'll have to send them a video.
I sent them pictures of those Christmas decorations last Christmas, and they tweeted back that they were very happy to have them. They put them on their Facebook page, as an example of what you could make.
Thought saying you have to pan regarding a toilet was a rather unfortunate choice of terminology.
Now you come to mention it, yes, it was. Inadvertent.
It does. It is the right terminology.
Oh dear. Any more questions? Well, in case anyone's thinking of, in the meantime, just next meeting. Theoretically, the next meeting is on the 2nd of December, because we meet bi-monthly, only we don't meet anymore, if you see what I mean. And that will be Robert Sproson of LSR. However, it's looking good that we can have an extra meeting in November, on November the 4th. One of these potpourri things with several contributors, 2 of whom appear to be here this evening, virtually. You know who you are. So, yeah, all being well, November the 4th. We'll have that and send out invitations. For those of you who don't live in Yorkshire, November the 4th used to be traditionally Mischief Night the night
They
before
don't do
bonfire
that
night.
now, do they?
Mischief night, a bit like trick or treat, only without the treat.
That's right.
Fallen out of fashion, sadly.
Did you know that Wakefield has the only bridge in the country that has a chancery on it?
Oh, yeah.
Not quite. It's the Chantry Chapel. There are actually several. There's one in Bradford-on-Avon.
Right.
There's one in St Ives in Cambridgeshire, and there's one in Rotherham.
Right.
The one in Wakefield is by far the largest.
Yeah.
It's rather beautiful. Yeah, chapel in the middle of a bridge.
My wife told me that and said, yeah, I had to tell you.
Yeah, yes, we're rather proud of it. Yeah, I think it's is it 14th to 15th century.
Yeah.
Wakefield is not famous for many things, and that's one of them. Chris is waving. You want to unmute yourself, Chris, if you want to say something? Well, maybe he's just being friendly. I don't know.
He wants to go to the toilet.
Yes, okay. Can't help you there, mate.
Wakefield has got a hotel in the middle of a lake. That's quite unusual.
Oh, yes, that's true. Walton Hall, yeah, that's true. Very pretty too. Okay. Well, if there are no more questions, then thanks everyone for not coming, so to speak. Hopefully we will have a video of this so you can watch again, or those who couldn't come can watch.
November the 4th.
I will try and remember not to close down the Zoom window before it starts saving the recording. We've got a backup though. Hopefully Ruth is recording it separately.
Indeed.
One thing, maybe somebody here will know. I'm obviously running Zoom under Windows. When somebody else is screen sharing, I lose my taskbar. So I cannot have access to my own machine, as it were. Anybody know how you overcome that? Blank looks all around.
No, it's
double clicking or something, double clicking on the screen or something.
I think what you might have to do is not be quite full screen, which is how I normally run Windows, so you can always see the taskbar.
Yeah, well, you know my eyesight. I kind of need things as big as possible. By the way, that strange noise early on in the proceedings, Mike, I'm afraid I'm the culprit. You shared a link to the video of the promotional video of the cutter.
Yeah.
And I clicked on that.
Oh, I see.
And the music was quite loud. What I hadn't realised is when I click mute all, it don't mute the host.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty obvious, really, but it didn't occur to me. So that's what that was. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe double clicking someone. Well, can you just share the screen, Mike, a minute, and then just see if what happens?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Oh yeah. Yep, double clicking at the edge. Well done, Chris. You're a star. He's got his uses.
One of a Christmas tree.
Oh yeah.
With a little bauble on it was. I put it out.
Nice.
Yeah, there's a mistake in it. Really, it was too big and it hit the stop. The buffers at the stop. And you can see that double curve in that's not meant to be there.
But
anyway, looks all right.
Yeah, it does.
Looks fine. There's not anything else that didn't. These are the holes I had to cut in to get proper ventilation. That's the that attic that used to have nothing in it.
What was the hole that you had a sort of rectangular hole cut out to the right of the laser cutter? Is that so you can go into the loft space and look through to see what the power setting is?
It goes to the loft space to draw air in from there. Air in goes into the loft space, from the loft space, and then out from the silver tube. And there's it.
It looked a bit sort of ragged. I mean, have you not been tempted to laser cut a nice little grill for it?
Nice little bezel.
Yes, a bezel. That's a good word.
I've got some aluminium, expanded aluminium grill that I'm going to put on it one day. That's the. I've joined it up to the tube that goes down to the outside, and it's dear stuff. This expanding. It's about 12 quid for 5 meters. It all comes sort of squashed up into about 1 meter, and it expands 5 times. But that's the button on the side, and that's the window that you were talking about.
Oh, yeah. It is kind of small, yeah.
And the knob that controls it, it's a push knob on there, so it's a rotary encoder. Those are the 3 LEDs that light up, and there's the power. And there are 2 jacks. You can't see the other one. One for the video, one for each of the video cameras inside it. This is when I took it apart the other day to clean the mirrors, and that was the mirror. One of the mirrors, you can see all this horribleness on it. It's all the vapours that condense on it, and then I cleaned it, and it's cleaned.
You have to use a special cleaner or alcohol or something.
IPA or acetone. And I found everybody says use IPA, and IPA gets most of it off, apart from a few little tiny bits. So I cleaned most of it with IPA, and then I gave it another dollop of acetone, and cotton wool buds, and that. They're fitted in the mount really by this aluminium foil, sticky backed aluminium foil, and you have to sort of cut it out with a scalpel and take it out, and then put it back and put some new aluminium foil on. So it's not been designed to be easily changed.
It's just glass, is it? It's not a...
No, it's a proper laser mirror, so it's zirconium or something like that.
Surface silvered or something like that, they call it.
Yeah, it's not silver. It's not, I know that I know the product. It's evaporated on, but it's not silver. If you do a search on Google for laser mirrors, then they'll tell you what's in them. So
right,
that's interesting.
It's obviously impervious to things like acetone, then obviously.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's basically it's a ceramic. I think it's basically glass, but it's got this coating on it. And I spent a lot of time researching this. There are umpteen different fluids you can use, and it depends on what you've been cutting. Depends on what gets through it. But most people say, "I'll just use IPA."
It's important to do your research on this. Years ago, I worked for a company that made things called direct reading emission spectrometers, and a customer in East Germany, as it was then, thought they'd save themselves the money of having this engineer fly all the way over from England to service the thing, giving it its annual service. So they opened up the side of the vacuum chamber with all the photomultipliers and saw this dull-looking mirror inside, and thought, if Vivo gives this a clean, it'll work much better. Unfortunately, this dull-looking mirror was a diffraction grating. Yeah, I think you can work the rest out for yourself.
Yeah.
So saving a little bit of money turned out to be a very expensive money-saving exercise.
I tried to get somebody to come and do this, but the only people I could find within sort of a reasonable distance were in Darlington, and they said, we've never seen one of those, despite they had on their website, we've seen every sort of laser, so we'll have seen yours. And I said, I bet you haven't seen this one, because I believe there's only 2 in the country, and it might just be one. But they posted a video of them sending 4 off for dispatch, and each one had a flag on it, and there was one British flag, and I think mine came sort of just after they'd posted that, so I think there might be 2 in the UK.
I've just looked this up, Mike. It says cobalt, chromium, and platinum. It's plated with, apparently.
Golly.
Good grief.
So acetone's not going to touch that.
One would hope not. It's good stuff, is acetone. I clean disc brakes on mountain bikes, and you use IPA and clean until the cloth or tissue, whatever you're using, comes up perfectly clean. And then you get acetone or acetone-based cleaners, and the cloth comes up right mucky.
Yes.
I knew there was a use for my nail polish remover.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
The other great stuff, if you go into Halfords or one of the car places and get brake and clutch cleaner, it'll either be naphtha or benzene. So you can get gallons of that, and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Trouble is, you're cleaning that, you need about as much as you can dip into 2 cotton buds. You know, it's not, you don't actually need. I bought a litre of it.
So it'd last you a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll see me out. Basically, I've come to that age where a litre of acetone is going to see me out of cleaning.
You sound like my grandma.
Especially-
It'll see me out.
A wonderful story, which I believe may be apocryphal, but somebody was going for an engineering job, and there was a face-to-face interview, and they went through the interview, answered all the right questions. They were constantly staring at this huge metal sphere on the desk. And in the end, he asked the managing director, he said, why have you got that metal sphere there? Is it some art object? He said, no, that's to remind us that the next time we order ball bearings, we check where we put the decimal point.
It's called a cannonball, isn't it?
Yeah. Reminds me of that time I went on a course for China WE, the regulations that China were going to introduce, and they had a peculiar requirement that you had to put a date on them when they would cause damage to the environment if you didn't do anything about it. So you had to put this date, and everybody couldn't really understand what it meant, whether it meant with maintenance or without maintenance, and this, that, and the other. And at the end of near the end of the discussion, I said, well, if it was up to me, I'd put 15 years on before you have to do it. And they all why? Why do you put 15 years? I says, because by then I'll be retired, it'll be somebody else's problem.
I couldn't believe this. I went to our local chemist and asked for a bottle of surgical spirit. And they said, oh, yes, we're glad you're getting it. We've got a lot to get rid of. I said, pardon? He said, we got a crate at the back. He said, but we've got to get rid of it because it's nearly past its sell-by date. I said, people have been pickling things in alcohol for 400,000 years. It doesn't go off. Why has it got a sell-by date?
Well, lots of things do, including honey, which lasts forever.
That's right, yes.
Can you unshare your screen, Mike?
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. See people better.
I was shocked to find out that safety helmets have a sell-by date or a use-by date on.
Oh.
They do, yes. Our canal restoration group had a whole load unused ones, and we were going to give them to another canal restoration group, and we couldn't.
Is that a use by date, the date by which you've got to crash with it?
Yeah, that'd be it.
Crash before date.
Yeah. There was a chemist worked at our place in Manchester, and he did the research on safety helmets and why you should replace them even after the mildest bump on them, and also they should be changed every so often anyway, because of the polymers being degraded by the ultraviolet in ordinary daylight. So he did a lot of work on that. So it was his fault.
Yeah. The trouble is, there's no distinction between ones that have been in intensive UV in Saudi Arabia day after day after day, and those that have been sitting in a box in a warehouse.
Well, a lot of them were to do with these fancy motorbike helmets.
Oh, yeah.
They came off the bike and they looked at it. Oh, that's all right. Might have a scuff mark on it. That's all. And he did the proving that even though cosmetically it looked okay, that it would smash a lot sooner.
Mm.
If you've come off your bicycle and bumped your cycle helmet, you're supposed to replace that, even if it looks okay.
It depends what it's made of. I mean, the soft foam ones aren't too
Yeah.
bad.
Well, they're just a softish foam with a, just a plastic shell that's just to look pretty. I have split a cycle helmet before now, but it's better than splitting your head. Okay.
All right then.
So, if everyone's done, I'll bid everyone good night. Thanks for.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thanks, Mike.
Yes.
That was
Thanks, Mike.
definitely different.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
So Laser Quest sounds a bit like some sort of corporate team building thing.
It does, yeah. That was deliberate.
Yes, I thought it might be.
I was going to say his presentation was the cutting edge, but that perhaps was probably going to.
Yeah.
Very droll. Right.
Okay.
Good night, all.
Okay.
Right,
Night. Thanks. Good night, and thank you.